still taboo to talk about sex and disability. Why? Why should it be that way? All of us are going to become disabled. All of us are going to have disability one day. Why aren't we talking about having great sex?
Hello, c'est Manon de TalQ. Tu l'auras sûrement compris, cet épisode est en anglais et parle de sexualité et handicap. Plus précisément de la start-up Bumpin, anciennement appelée Handi, qui a développé le Joystick. Le Joystick, c'est le premier jouet sexuel accessible créé pour les personnes ayant des limitations de leurs mains, qu'il s'agisse d'un handicap, d'une blessure, du vieillissement, de l'arthrite ou de toute autre personne ayant besoin d'un coup de pouce. Il a été conçu par des experts en santé sexuelle, des ergothérapeutes et une communauté de personnes handicapées. Le tout à l'initiative d'Andrew Kurza et Heather Morrisson, qui sont frères et sœurs, lui au Canada à Toronto et elle en Australie à Sydney. Deux parties du monde, deux décalages horaires bien différents, et donc deux épisodes parce que je n'ai pas su tout découper. Leur version de l'histoire et leurs différents rôles sont trop importants pour être coupés au montage. Il y aura donc deux épisodes sur Bumpin, une avec Andrew, qui se définit comme un militant queer Cripple ou Chief Disability Officer, qui s'occupe surtout du design du produit et du contenu, et Heather, qui est CEO de la boîte, qui est plus dans les chiffres, le marketing et les levées de fonds. Leurs deux témoignages sont complémentaires. On commence par celui d'Andrew, dont l'histoire personnelle a permis de faire naître Bumpin. Pour les personnes non anglophones et qui auraient surtout du mal avec mon super accent anglais, je vous invite à aller écouter et voir l'épisode sur YouTube où vous devriez trouver des sous-titres en français automatiques dans un premier temps et corrigés très bientôt, ainsi qu'un lien vers une retranscription en français. J'espère que ça vous plaira. Très bonne écoute.
So, hello Andrew, thank you for accepting this invitation and sorry for my English first and my French
that's okay.
accent.
Thank you for having me.
Could you just talk about you? Who are you? And a short story about you even before you began this company.
Yeah, my name is Andrew Gurza. I'm a disability awareness consultant living in Canada, in Toronto, Canada. I'm going to be 38 in May, and I live with cerebral palsy. So I'm a wheelchair user, a power chair user, and I'm queer. I use they, he pronouns to describe myself. I talk a lot about sexuality and disability in my life because we don't talk about it a lot in our culture, sexuality and disability. And that kind of led me into wanting to start this company because not only don't we talk about sex and disability, we also don't have resources like toys designed for disabled people. So sex and disability and queerness and all those things have been a big part of my life, even when I was a teenager and growing up.
Okay, but how would you say that? How did this begin? Because it's hard to talk about your personal journey in your sexuality. It's hard to talk about sexuality in general, even if you're not talking about you. But maybe even more in your case, because you are also disabled and you're also queer, it's a whole identity to assume, and maybe people ask you question you didn't want to answer, and I'm sorry if I do that today. I would try not to, but
no, it's okay.
How everything began, like why did you choose to be this kind of advisor? Because this is a kind of unique role.
Yeah. I chose to do this because nobody else was doing it when I started. It really wasn't part of the conversation, and I wanted to be part of the queer community, but nobody was talking about queerness and sexuality and disability, and so I felt very excluded. So I discovered that if I didn't talk about it, nobody else was going to talk about it. So I thought a way to get myself included in community and in conversation was to start talking about it. It wasn't that I necessarily wanted to. It was that I wanted community and I wanted friends and dates and relationships and all those things and intimacy and sex and all that stuff. And I thought if I start talking about my experience as a queer disabled person, then maybe they'll see me differently. They'll start to understand that I exist too. And so it was really a want for community.
Yeah, it was also a necessity, a need, because I heard that when you're disabled or even when you get sick, when you get older, if you go to hospital, if you talk to your doctors, they just forget about that we are all human beings and that we have a sexuality, because they see something else first. It could be disability, it could be just your broken legs, it could be something else, but they forget this part of our life, and this is why you wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it too. A lot of the way that disabled people are talked about in the medical system is that they're not sexual beings. They don't have a sexuality. And so for me, talking about sexuality is a part of, we talk about disability and human rights all the time, but we don't talk about sexuality as a part of that human right. And I believe that sexuality for disabled people is a human right and something we should be championing. So when I talk about sex and when I do things with the sex toy, and yeah, it's all sexy and fun, but I'm actually talking about a human right, and I think it's important that we remember that. Like yes, it's a sex toy, and yes, it can be sexy and cheeky and fun, but it really boils down to that I deserve, as a disabled person, to have a sexuality and to have access to that.
Okay, so you began with a blog, if I'm not wrong. How did you begin to spread the words?
I started doing what I started before Bumpin' and before we got into that. I started doing. I did a blog. I did a bunch of writing for Huffington Post in the U.S. and a bunch of blogs just talking about queerness. And I wrote them just emails saying, "Hi, I have a story about sexuality and disability. Can I write for you?"
Oh, that's great.
And they said, "Sure." They said, "Sure, like write a bunch of articles for us." So people started to know who I was because I would write articles about sex and disability for these big outlets. They never paid me, but they said, write for us. And then people got to know who I was. And then from there, I started doing a podcast, my podcast, Disability After Dark. I started, I was contacted then a couple years later by the National Film Board of Canada to be in a film about my journey of sex and disability. And then from that journey, my sister Heather saw the film that I did when it came down to Australia. And when she saw the film, I talk about how I couldn't masturbate and how I had trouble masturbating and self-pleasuring because of disability. And so she saw that, and then I came to visit her in Australia a few months later, and we were talking on the beach one day, and she said, "Well, why can't you just get a toy that works for you?" And I said, "Well, there are no toys on the market for me, and because of my hands and my disability," I'm showing my hands to Manal right now, because of my hands and my cerebral palsy, I can't use a toy. So we talked some more, and then she said, "Well, did you ever want to consider making one?" And I thought, I don't know. Do I want to make a sex toy with my sister? I don't know. So my activism has always been to put sex and disability and queerness and all those things front and center and not be afraid to talk about it. And I think putting things out like the blog, putting things out like the podcast, putting things out like Instagram and Twitter, putting these conversations in the public is really important, because if I don't and other advocates don't do that, we're never going to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, because you're first concerned about that, so you need to talk about it. Okay. And so actually, I didn't realize that you were siblings with Heather.
Oh no, yeah, no. Heather and I are brother and sister. We're a brother and sister duo team. Yeah.
Okay, so that's great. So it's a family business, actually, and so
yeah, in a weird sort of way. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
No, but that's okay. I mean, why not? I mean, it's a question of health also. It's a question of human rights. It's not only about sexuality, and it's a question of engineering and design, a project. And so this whole story began with you, but also this conversation on the beach in Australia, if I understood well. And so she just said that, and then you said, okay, why not? And then when was it?
I said, let's talk. We had this conversation back. We had the conversation back in 2018, and then what we did is we went, after we kind of talked about it some more and agreed to look into it. We went on Reddit and we put out a survey on Reddit just asking people, like, is this a problem for everybody? Is this something you want? Do you have trouble masturbating because of your hand limitation? Do you have trouble using toys because of your hands? And what we found was that when we got 100 respondents from that Reddit thread, 92% of the people we spoke to said, we want a toy like this. We want something designed for us. So we realized very quickly that it was less about, let's make a toy for Andrew to have to masturbate. It was actually something we could do to change the world and change the conversation. So, that's what makes it really, yes, we are a brother and sister team, but because we're doing something for the world, it's not so weird, because we're doing something that's going to help everyone, not just disabled people, but to anybody who has arthritis or injury or, wants to use their hands for other stuff. This toy is actually for them. So we realized that this toy would actually be solving problems for a lot of people around the world.
Yeah, it's completely true. It can be also for people who just got an accident or just getting older and have problem with their hands.
Yeah.
And just lack of precision with the hands. Yeah, and this is another taboo, actually, getting older and having a sexuality, but this is not our topic today. So
we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we could actually. So you began in 2018, and just before we go more precisely on the project, on the Joystick, can I ask you? So you are in Toronto. She's in Australia now. How is the sex tech market there? Because in France it's still quite hard. In Europe it's growing. It's in the US and in Australia. I heard that it's growing also. How is it in Canada?
I mean, I think in Canada it's growing too. The sex tech market is like $1 billion industry everywhere. It's a very big industry, but the problem is that they're not catering to certain populations. So the industry is very white, very cis, very able-bodied. A lot of the toys on the market assume you can do certain things and don't consider disabled bodies or different bodies in their equations. So while the market's very big, the discussion around sex and disability in those markets is still very small.
Okay. Yeah, of course. So, and what about, creating a company, finding investors, finding a bank, or just supports, or, communications? How is it? Like, is it censored also? Or is it even harder because you're talking about disabilities plus queerness plus sexuality? Or
yeah, I mean, I know that Heather is more of she has all the numbers on like the investment and all that stuff. But I know when she's pitched to investors and when we pitch to people, some investors have said, we like what you're doing, but we don't know if we can do this because it deals with sex, or we want to talk to you, but we're not sure if we can do this. So I think the discussion of sex for investment to get capital is still really hard because sex is so taboo. And then when you throw in disability, that's also taboo. So I think that, and Heather is the one, when you speak to Heather, she'll tell you more about what it's like to pitch to investors, because she does it a lot. I'm the one that comes out and says, oh yeah, the product is great. So, but she can tell you kind of more about that journey a little bit. But I know that even when we try to put our stuff on social media, talking about what we do, we often have to be very careful how we curate our Twitter and our Instagram, because they might pull it down. And so I think the conversation around sex in the public sphere and sexual education, like we're trying to do, is very sex negative still, and we have a lot of work to do to move that needle forward. So it's been hard. We found creative ways around it to put up like cheeky things and not make it so sexual, but still talk about sex. But it has been difficult because you can't have open conversations about sex on the internet or sexual education on the internet, and that makes it hard to kind of get our message out there. But we find ways around it.
Yeah, of course. You have to be even more creative when you're going in this industry. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So, but I will ask her too. And so, if I understood well, so you are more involved. Sorry, in the project creation, I guess, and maybe now she's more into the financial, the pitch investor stuff,
She's the
communication.
number person. She's she has all the numbers and deals with all the money and all that stuff, and I appreciate that because that is something that I can never do. So she's the one running that one, and I'm the one that helps with like project design. I'm also the chief disability officer at Bumpin', which means that when we put out press release, when we do any kind of marketing, they come to me and say, "Does this look okay from a disability standpoint? Does this language work? Does it look all right? What do you think? Would you change anything here?" So I am very involved in helping them and helping our company to make sure that it's meeting the needs of the disabled community and meeting and using the right language and having the right conversation. So I'm very involved in that. And when when we started designing the joystick, we worked with RMIT, which is a like MIT but for Australia. So they do design stuff, and we worked with Judith Glover, who's a designer over there at
Okay.
RMIT. She's one of the only people doing kind of sex toy design over there at RMIT, and so we just found her on the internet and said, "We want to work with you. Would you work with us?" And she emailed us back a couple of days later and said, "Wow, I've been trying to fix this problem of making accessible sex toys for a long time." So we hooked up with her and her team and occupational therapists and physical therapists to learn about how we could make this go and how we could um, make a toy like this. But whenever we do stuff like that, because Heather is not disabled and I am, so there's always been a disabled person in the room whenever we have a big board meeting, whenever we have discussions, whenever we have um, issues around disability we want to solve. There's always someone in the room, and that's what we have referred to as disability driven design, because we want to make sure that from the idea all the way through to execution, there's a disabled person in the room.
Yeah, that's amazing, because then you are sure that from A to Z, your project and the way it's thought and it's then sell will be completely inclusive and just designed for this for your targets.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not always me in the room. There's always there's other people with disabilities on the team, and that we reach out to and say, "Can we talk to you about this? How do we make this go?" So, but we're always working within the community to make sure that our toy is and our any project that we put out is as accessible as possible.
Okay. And yes, actually, it's not only accessible for disabled people; it's also super inclusive. I understood that when I checked a bit on your website that you were into queerness, and you define yourself actually as a queer cripple, and I was a bit surprised by
Yeah,
by the word cripple. I know it's like queer, of course it was before, and something very negative and pejorative, and now
yeah,
it's a way to
it's reclaimed.
to be proud. Yes, it's reclaimed,
Yeah,
but I was still a bit surprised, and it's great because
yeah,
and I understood why your project seems so gender inclusive, or maybe gender fluid, maybe
yeah, yeah.
because you
Our
present it
our
like that,
project,
right?
yeah, our project is for all gender expressions. Our toy, the bump and joystick, is not defined by gender. It's not defined by ability level. Anyone can use our toy, and the reason why I use queer cripple for myself, and I wouldn't put this language on anybody else, so I use it just for me. But I understand that both of the word queer and the word cripple, both those words, like we talked about, had negative connotation. So for me, it's reclaiming, but also it's shocking people into listening to me. So when I say I'm a queer cripple, people go, oh, "What did he just say? Wow, what did he say?" But then when I talk about ableism or I talk about other discrimination, being a disabled person, because they were shocked by what I said, they'll pay attention to what I'm talking about. So I use that language to get people to pay attention to me and be like, oh, that's different. Oh, that's shocking. But he's actually talking about disability and inclusion and access and all those things. So I use that language to springboard and start a conversation.
Okay, and it works, I guess.
Yeah, it does, usually.
Okay, and so yeah, about the joystick now. So how did you began to design it? Of course, you were helped by this designer, but did you make I don't know, how can you begin? You know, you have so many thing on your agenda, you know, like you have a list of problem you want to solve, a list of thing you dream about your project. Or how do you begin a project like that?
It's a big process, and Heather and I were very kind of when we were on that beach that day and we said, oh, let's make a toy, we were very, very naive. We didn't realize all the work that went into it, all the process, all the time of us trying to figure out what to do. But we connected with RMIT, you know, once we realized how important, how many people wanted a toy like this, and we connected with the design team of Judith Glover. We had meetings and talked about, okay, what kind of toy would work? What kind of toy what kind of vibrations do you like? What do you need for it to work? And we came up with 4 concepts, and the one we liked was the joystick. And we chose the joystick because I have cerebral palsy and limited dexterity. I don't have very good fine motor skills. So if you look at a lot of the toys on the market, they're tiny, they're small, they have little buttons that you have to press, and I couldn't use any of that. I'll give you an example. A couple years ago, I was asked by a company to test a sex toy. So I went to the post office and I picked it up. They sent it to me and I picked it up. And I realized that I couldn't even open the box to get the toy out of the box. And I realized that I would have to call one of my attendant care workers, the people who help me with my day-to-day stuff, to help me get the toy out of the box and use the toy. And I was embarrassed because I was like, I can't, how am I going to ask my care worker to do this? Because I can't do it. So she was kind enough to help me, my care worker, and she put the toy on my genitals. And then I realized that I couldn't, when the toy was on my genitals, I couldn't press the buttons, I couldn't make it change vibration speed, I couldn't do any of that because of my dexterity. And then she said to me, okay, I'll be back in 20 minutes. Good luck with the masturbation. And I was like, oh, that's embarrassing, so embarrassing. So I was like, oh, this is not going to work. So experiences like that and trying to use toys on my own kind of are where this idea came from. And so whenever I had meetings with Heather or the team at RMIT, I would say, I want something big. I want something that I can grab onto, that I don't have to rely on my fine motor skills. We need something big. And so the more and more we looked at toys, like they sent me toys from everywhere and said, test these for us, tell us what you think. And so I would feedback them what I liked, what I didn't like, how I could use the toy, what it was like putting the toy on, all these things. And so we came through like so many conversations, we came to recognize that a toy like the joystick would be best for somebody like me.
Okay, but you mentioned one thing about your the care worker. You said that in English?
Yeah.
So it's a person who helps you in your everyday life. It's that?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
And I was thinking like with on the joystick itself doesn't has vibration, right? It's you have two different kind of holes where you can put different kind of toys, right?
Of toys, yeah.
Okay, so but it's a common toy that you will be able to put on the joystick.
Yes. Yeah. So you would take your off-the-shelf toys. So for anybody listening, the top of the toy looks like a pillow. It's a soft, pillowy thing, and the bottom of the toy is a peg. and the bottom of the toy has different size holes that you can put on, like vibrators, dildos, sleeves, wands, all those things. And so you can use your off-the-shelf toys with the joystick. So the joystick right now kind of acts as a holder to hold your current toys. We're going to be working on getting our own sleeves made, our own vibrators, our own dildos, all those
This is
things
what I wanted to
eventually.
ask you.
Yeah. Eventually we are working on getting our own wands and sleeves and all those things coming probably, with COVID, I'll say probably next year. But we are working on that. Right now, we want to just get the actual product
Of course.
out to people so they can start using it.
Okay, because now I'm just thinking that maybe for the sleeves or the like the flashlights or masturbators, it's still okay, because if they don't have buttons, it's kind of easy to put them in the joystick. But if you're using a wand, for example, you still have to put to press a button. So then you still maybe need to educate a care worker also to use this product. Is it one of your aim, also one of your targets, to of course sell to the concerned people, so disabled people, but also doctors or care workers or people around a person?
Heather is working in Australia with a lot of occupational therapists to get the toy to be prescribed through what they have in Australia is called the National Disability Insurance Scheme. And so we've worked with them and occupational therapists and physical therapists over there to make that part of the toy. So an occupational therapist can prescribe the toy as like a therapeutic device so that somebody can use their funding to get the toy. So we are working with not necessarily doctors per se, but physical therapists and occupational therapists to show that not only is this a sex toy, this is also a therapeutic need, and there is a need for this outside of just let's have a good wank, let's have a good masturbation session.
Yeah. Okay. So I saw that. I saw on your website that in Australia, for example, and maybe in other country later, you can be kind of refunded or helped in the financial
or paid
acquisition.
For I think with every country it's different, and so we're working right now to understand every disability insurance scheme to understand how we can best help people get it who can't afford it right now. And we are asking on the site, I don't know if you saw, there's a donate button on our site. So if anybody who is not disabled who wants to put some money down to help a disabled person get a toy, about every month or so we gift a disabled person a toy, and we do like giveaways of one toy. So if you want to put money down so we can gift a toy, that way the non-disabled community is helping too, because a lot of people with disabilities, what we're finding right now with the toy is that a lot of people want it, they're very excited, but a lot of disabled people live on a fixed income. So we're doing our best to find ways to make it accessible. So we're also using things like Afterpay and Zip Pay, and we're trying to use mechanisms to make it as affordable and accessible as possible.
Yeah, I will definitely put links to be able to donate on your website. So I'm sorry, I'm always mixing all my questions because you mentioned, care workers and refunding and stuff. I wanted to ask it on the moment, and now I will go back to the design of the joystick. So you said, of course, the top of the joystick is like a big cushion, and so why did you want to have this? You told me why you wanted something big to make it easy to hold it, but why a cushion? It's like a person. It's like, how did it come to this idea? Because it's the first sex toys I ever seen. Which seems so comfy,
I mean that the comfiness was definitely part of it. We also understood, talking to a lot of disabled people and, disabled people sharing their stories with us, a lot of disabled people don't get a lot of intimacy. They don't get a lot of touch. And so we wanted something that you could cuddle into. We wanted something you could hug and be comfy with. And we thought having a comfy cushion is like, oh, that will also give intimacy to the user. And so people who have tested our prototypes of the toy have said, I love the intimacy of the pillow. I love how soft and cozy it makes me feel as I set up to self-pleasure. So we wanted something that could give people not just a sexual experience, but a comfy, cozy, intimate experience if they wanted that too.
Yeah, okay. Now that's sounds like super logical when you say it, but when I saw it first, I was like, how did they think about that, you know?
Yeah, you're like, what is this? So, yeah.
Okay. I guess you began in 2018, and you
We began
faced...
talking about it in 2018. The company didn't start until 2020.
Okay, yeah. But still, you I guess you already faced a lot of struggle, criticism. Could you share a bit of them?
Yeah, I mean,
Obstacles.
we struggled finding money to even get with RMIT. So when we first started talking about it, we put up a GoFundMe account and we raised about $10,000, just enough money for us to do the research with the team. And then, in terms of criticism, we know that the toy is not going to work for everyone. We know that the toy might not be the best toy for everyone, but we understand that there's a need. We understand that there's a need here, and we also understand that when it comes to sexuality and disability, this is not a market that's been marketed to before. And so some of our biggest criticisms have been price, but we've said, we can't lower the price, because if we lower the price, then as a company, we don't make any money. So people have said, like, $250 is a lot for me. That's why I said earlier, we've done things like ask for the insurance scheme, done afterpay, giving away toys where we can. We've done our best, but we also can't lower the price, because then we don't make a lot of money as a company, and we can't then afford to make the toy if we have no money. So, I mean, but I think we've been lucky enough that we haven't received a ton of criticism, because it's something that hasn't been marketed to before. And I mean, if we do receive criticism, we're always open to having a discussion.
Of course.
We're always open to listening to the people. So any feedback that we get that is not so positive, we'll jump into those comments and say, hey, thank you so much for your feedback. Did you want to have a Zoom call with us, the founders, to talk about what the issues are, talk about what some of your concerns are? How can we make it better? We're always open-minded to listening to how can we make our product better. So we never take it as like, oh no, you don't like us. Oh no. We always say, great, thank you for the feedback. We want to learn from you. How do we make it better?
Okay. Yes. Yeah. You're super positive and you constructive. Okay. And
yeah, we really try to be.
But there is no, sorry, I'm always trying to find positive and the negative options or stories, and so there are no, questions you don't want to answer anymore. Sometimes people can have super cliche questions, and maybe I ask some of them, I don't know, but there is nothing that upsets you since you began this journey?
I mean, we try to stay really positive. There are definitely days where both Heather and I are like, what have we gotten ourselves into? How are we doing this? Oh my goodness, this is way too much. And we've definitely had moments where both of us are like, this is overwhelming. This is a lot to deal with. But I think we have tried to stay really positive. And any question that someone asks, even if they ask us the same question, like when we launched the pre-orders for the toy on December 3rd of last year, International Day of Persons with Disabilities, and we launched a video on our Facebook showing kind of what the toy was, and we got a lot of the same questions of like, oh, how does it work? Oh, why is it so big? Oh, like a ton of the same questions. And we could have been like, oh, so many of the same questions. It's so boring. Ask different things. But I think the reason why people are asking is because they want to learn. They want to know more. So we never shut people out from asking. And we do our best to answer every question because we know this has not been marketed before. This is not like going to your regular sex shop and picking up, a vibrator, an off-the-shelf vibrator. This is totally new and unmarketed for. So we welcome questions and we welcome discussion because we want to make it as accessible as possible.
Okay, great. Yes, you're creating a market actually, so you have everything to do on it. Okay, so and finally, it's a bit a larger question, but what is the future of sex for you, and especially the future of sex in the disability for disabled people? Like there are so many things to do. Of course, you don't need to tell me everything about what you want to do for bumps, but maybe you could share like some ideal vision of what you would like to see or appear like, or to do, or yeah.
I mean, I would love to see disabled people in more pornography. I would love to see disabled people in sexual ads. I would love to see disabled people in condom commercials. I would love to see disability and sexuality being talked about everywhere. I want to see more products designed by disabled people for disabled people. I want to see, I want sex and disability to become way less taboo than it is right now. It's still alarming to me that in 2022, it's still taboo to talk about sex and disability. Why? Why should it be that way? All of us are going to become disabled. All of us are going to have disability one day. Why aren't we talking about having great sex even then? And it's a shame that we're still like that this conversation is still in the shadows. It should be out there more. So I would hope in the next 5-10 years that we see more of that. I know in the next 5 years, our company wants to grow. We want to do more educational speaking around sexuality and disability. We want to look at other products and other options. We want to do all that stuff. There's so much to do, and we want to open up the conversation so that other people can be a part of it, and it can become, sex and disability can become a booming market rather than a niche market like it is right now.
Yes, because it will concern almost everyone at the end, depending of...
It does concern, it does. Because, look, right now, you could leave your house right now, and you could go down the street, and you could run into someone who uses a wheelchair that you're like, oh, I think you're really cute. I want to go on a date with you. I want to get to know you. That person, then disability becomes a part of your life already.
That's
so
true.
even if you don't become disabled, you will encounter disability at some point in your life through a partner or a relationship, and then you're going to have to learn to talk about it. So we need to have these conversations all the time. And bumping is, not only are we creating a toy, we also have a Facebook group where we talk about sexuality and disability, where we open up conversations around that stuff. So not only are we creating a toy, we're also trying to build a conversation. We also, in 2020, we edited and curated a book called The Bumpin' Book of Love, Lust, and Disability. In that book, there are 50 contributors from all over the world telling us how sex and disability feels and what their experience of sex and disability was like. And I love that book because it talks about sex and disability and chronic illness in a way that we never have seen before. So I love, not only am I proud of the toy Bumpin' is creating, but also the conversation that we're trying to keep having every day of like, let's put disability in the forefront every day.
Yeah, it's not only a project, it's also just
a movement.
A movement, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a part of life. And I think, as a disabled person I don't quite remember how it is in France, but I think, in North America, there's a big push for disability justice, disability access, all these things. But none of these movements talk about access to sex. None of these movements talk about access to your body. Yeah. And I wish that we would take our discussion of access and move it to sex, because it's just as important as all the other ones. And so what we're trying to do at Bumpin' and what I'm trying to do through my other work is just have the conversation every day. Have a conversation of sexuality and disability every single day.
Okay, yeah, that's the most important. First, we have to talk about it, and then they will be able to buy a product from Bumps or something else.
Yeah.
But yes, and your book is only in English, right? And it's still available, or?
Yeah, it's available online.
It's online, right?
You can buy one from our website, and there's 3 ways you can access it. It's only English right now.
Yeah,
maybe that'll change. I don't know. But it's a hard copy, so you can get a copy of the book itself, or you can get a digital copy, or you can get an audiobook. So I got to read half of the audiobook. So I read the quotes from the people, and so if you want to listen to me read the book to you, you can get the book for I think it's 30. I think. Let me just double check, because the price.
I didn't know about the audiobook parts. That's great.
Yeah, so I got to read it last year and do half of it, and that was really fun, because I like, I already have a podcast, so I like doing voice stuff. Yeah, so you can get the book now for $14.99, the ebook and the audiobook too for $15 US.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, we'll put them in the description for sure. And you already launched the pre-order for the joystick since December, right? And
December 3rd,
yeah, and it will be the official launch will be in May or June, if I'm not wrong.
We're hoping May. We're hoping May. It depends, coronavirus really threw us for a loop. We have to make sure that everything is good to go. But I'm pretty sure that pre-orders will be hopefully in your hands and in your bedrooms by May of 2022.
Okay, and will it be available from everywhere in the world, or only in North America and Australia first?
I know that we're working with Love Honey, which is one of our distributors. So pretty sure that it'll ship worldwide from our website. I'm pretty sure that that's how that'll work. But I know that Heather can definitely tell you more about that. She, again, works on all the technical side of it, but I'm pretty sure it's available. It'll be available everywhere from our website.
Okay, that's great. But anyway, I think, people will have questions about it, and they will take time to buy it. They will be able to wait for it, because there is no other project like that anyway. So
yeah, it's one of a kind for sure, and we're excited.
Okay. Is there something else you would add about Bumped or the joystick itself, or just about the message you want to pass, and then we finish this?
I just want to say thank you for having me, and thank you for featuring Bumpin'. And I hope that everybody goes and picks up a toy and thinks about getting a toy if they're able to. And again, I send this message to anyone who is not disabled who's listening. If you want to do something good for the disability community, buy them a toy. Buy a toy for your disabled friend who wants, to explore these things. Buy a toy to donate to somebody else. Think about how you can use your privilege as a non-disabled person to make change in this industry.
Okay, thank you. Just one question about that. Giving a sex toy as a gift sometimes can be a bit complicated for people. And do you think they should have this conversation before? Like, do you want me to? Is it okay if I offer you a sex toy as a gift, or is it something you would like to try, or we can keep it as a surprise? How do we offer?
I think both are okay. I think
Okay.
I think you can definitely have the conversation and be like, hey, I saw this thing on Bumpin's website. I saw this toy, the Joystick. Do you think that it would work for you? I think those conversations are totally valid and totally should be happening. But I also think if you know your friend well enough, maybe a surprise is nice too.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Andrew, and see you soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Merci d'avoir écouté jusqu'au bout. Si vous avez aimé cet épisode, encore une fois, ça serait super si vous pouviez le partager autour de vous et surtout vous abonner et mettre des petites étoiles sur Apple Podcast. N'oubliez pas également de suivre le compte Instagram TalQ-Universe. Merci encore et à très vite.